The massive alien ship called Harmony's End was dying in the cold darkness of space. Its metal hull had 3 huge holes torn through it, and the engines that once pushed it between stars were now silent and broken. Inside the ship, a creature named Vel-7 worked desperately at a control panel covered in blinking lights. His hands had 6 fingers instead of 5, and they shook as he tried to fix their communication system. Vel-7 belonged to a peaceful race called the Zep. They had never built weapons or fought wars. Instead, they spent their time creating beautiful art and studying the stars. But now, their entire world was gone, destroyed by something terrible called the Devourers. "How much time do we have left?" asked Captain Morthree, the leader of their ship. His voice was tired and scared. "The Devourers will find us in 2 days," Vel-7 replied, without looking up from his work. "Maybe less." The Devourers were like a nightmare come to life. They traveled from planet to planet, eating everything alive. They had already consumed 17 different worlds, turning them into empty, dead rocks floating in space. The Zephyrians had watched their beautiful home planet get stripped clean in just a few hours. "I need to contact the Altarians," Vel-7 muttered, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "They have military ships. They might help us." The Altarians were another alien race that had some warships, though not very many. They were the closest thing to a military force in this part of the galaxy. Vel-7 had been trying to reach them for hours, but their communication system was badly damaged. In his panic and fear, Vel-7 made a mistake. He accidentally changed the frequency settings on their emergency transmitter. Instead of sending their cry for help to the Altarians, the signal went shooting off toward a completely different part of space. It traveled for hours through the darkness until it reached a small solar system that most aliens had never heard of. The signal hit a blue and green planet called Earth. Lieutenant Danny Morrison was having a boring night at his job. He worked at the Deep Space Monitoring Station, a place where humans listened for signals from other planets. Most nights, he heard nothing but empty static from space. He was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee and thinking about going home when suddenly every alarm in the building started screaming. His computer screen exploded with activity. A signal was coming in from deep space, and it was clearly from an intelligent source. Danny's hands flew over his keyboard as he tried to make sense of what he was hearing. The station's translation computer worked harder than it ever had before. It took the alien sounds and slowly converted them into broken English words that appeared on Danny's screen. What he read made his blood run cold. "Help. Our world is dying. Something called Devour is coming. We are defenseless. Please, help us. Danny stared at the message for a full minute. Then he grabbed his phone and made the most important call of his life. Within 10 minutes, the message was on the desk of Admiral Tyler Bradley at Luna Command, humanity's main military base on the moon. Bradley was a tough man who had served in 3 different wars. He had seen terrible things and made hard decisions. But as he read the translated alien message, something stirred inside him that he hadn't felt in years. Someone out there was in trouble. Someone was scared and helpless and about to die, and they had asked humanity for help. Bradley looked at the message again. These aliens, whoever they were, had made a simple mistake. They probably meant to call someone else, some other alien race, with a few ships and limited weapons. Instead, they had contacted Earth. They had contacted a species that had survived ice ages and world wars. A species that had fought their way up from caves to the stars. A species that had one simple rule: you don't hurt innocent people while humans are watching. Bradley picked up his red phone and began making calls. The Zephyrians had no idea what they had just unleashed. Admiral Tyler Bradley had never seen anything like it in his 30 years of military service. Within 1 hour of receiving the alien distress call, his communication system was flooded with responses from every corner of human space. It was as if someone had kicked over an anthill, but instead of ants, thousands of human warriors were pouring out ready for battle. The message that went out was simple and direct. Unknown alien species under attack. They asked for our help. All ships. Report for immediate deployment. Bradley stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching the holographic display that showed human space. Little dots of light were moving from every direction, all heading toward the same point in space where the aliens were trapped. Each dot represented a human warship, and there were more appearing every minute. Captain Rebecca Torres called in from the massive battleship, New York's Pride. "Admiral, we're loaded and ready to go. Our nuclear torpedoes are armed, and our crew is eager to help these aliens." Then Commander Jason Fletcher from Mars Colony checked in. "Sir, we're bringing the entire Mars Defense Fleet, 27 ships, all equipped with the latest plasma cannons. We'll be there in 18 hours. What amazed Bradley the most was that it wasn't just the military responding. The mining ships from the asteroid belt were calling in too. These were tough workers who spent their lives digging precious metals out of space rocks. They were welding weapons onto their ships and volunteering to fight. "Admiral Bradley, this is Captain Kelly Wright from the mining vessel Iron Digger. We've attached military-grade lasers to our hull. We're not much to look at, but we're ready to help those aliens." Even the cargo haulers were joining the fight. These massive ships normally carried food and supplies between planets, but now they were loading up with ammunition and medical supplies. Captain Brian Hayes from the transport ship Steady Runner reported that his crew had voted unanimously to join the rescue mission. Communications. Officer Rachel Carter looked up from her console with amazement in her voice. "Sir, we now have over 300 ships confirmed and more are still coming. The shipyards at Jupiter are even sending ships that aren't quite finished yet." Bradley nodded slowly. This was humanity at its best. They had never met an alien before, didn't know what these creatures looked like or where they came from. All they knew was that someone was in trouble and had asked for help. That was enough. "What's our total firepower looking like?" Bradley asked. Lieutenant Mark Stevens ran the numbers quickly. "Sir, we'll have enough nuclear weapons to crack a small moon. Our plasma cannons could melt through a mountain, and our defensive shields could protect an entire city." The truth was, humanity had been preparing for war for centuries. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they had learned that the universe could be a dangerous place. Every ship they built was designed to protect human colonies. Every weapon they created was meant to keep their families safe. But now, for the first time, they were using all that power to protect someone else. Meanwhile, far away in space, Navigator Vel 7 was staring at his sensor readings with growing terror. When he had sent out their distress call, he expected maybe 1 or 2 Altarian patrol ships to respond. The Altarians were known for being helpful, but they only had a small fleet. What his sensors were showing him was impossible. Hundreds of ships were approaching their location, and each one was bigger and more heavily armed than anything in Zephyrian records. These weren't Altarian vessels. These were something completely unknown. Captain Morthree Vel 7 called out, his voice shaking. "You need to see this." The captain hurried over to look at the sensor display. His eyes grew wide as he saw the approaching fleet. "Those aren't Altarian ships. What are they?" "I don't know," Vel 7 whispered, "but I think I sent our distress call to the wrong place. I think I contacted something much more dangerous than the Devourers." The Zephyrians had lived peaceful lives for thousands of years. They had never seen a real warship before. The largest military vessel in their history was about the size of a human cargo ship. Now they were watching a fleet approach that could destroy entire solar systems. Captain Morthree felt his heart sinking. "What have we done? We called for help, and we might have brought something worse than the Devourers to our location." Neither of them understood that they were about to meet a species that would travel across the galaxy just to help strangers. They were about to discover what happened when humanity decided that someone needed protection. The human ship Olive Branch slowly approached the damaged alien vessel, but it wasn't alone. Behind it stretched a line of warships that seemed to go on forever. Massive battleships with hulls thick as buildings, destroyers bristling with weapons, carriers loaded with fighter ships. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, and it was all here to help some aliens they had never met before. Captain Derek Hayes sat in his command chair, looking at the broken alien ship on his main screen. The vessel was clearly dying. Its hull was cracked open in several places, and strange fluids were leaking out into space. Whatever had attacked these creatures had done serious damage. "Open a communication channel," Hayes ordered his crew. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." The communication officer nodded and activated the transmitter. Hayes cleared his throat and spoke in his calmest, most reassuring voice. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Derek Hayes of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call asking for help. Are you currently under attack? Do you need immediate medical assistance?" Inside the alien ship, Navigator Vel 7 was working frantically at his damaged control panel when the transmission came through. His universal translator device worked overtime to convert the strange alien language into something he could understand. When he heard the words, he nearly fell out of his chair. These weren't This was a completely unknown species, and they had brought what looked like enough ships to conquer half the galaxy. Vel 7's hands trembled as he activated his own transmitter to respond. "Please, there has been a terrible misunderstanding," Vel 7 said quickly. "We were trying to contact the Altarian Confederation. We didn't mean to bother you. You really don't need to be here with so many warships." On the human ship, Captain Hayes frowned as he listened to the translation. These aliens seemed to be giving him tactical information. They were mentioning other aliens called Altarians, and they seemed worried about the size of his fleet. That could only mean one thing. The enemy must be incredibly dangerous if the aliens thought he needed fewer ships. "Understood," Hayes replied. "Can you tell us how many hostile vessels we should expect? Our fleet is ready to defend your people against any threat." Vel 7 stared at his communication device in confusion. The humans seemed to think they were here to fight someone. No, he transmitted back desperately. "You don't understand. We just need repairs and medical help. The Devourers won't be here for another day." Lieutenant Ashley Rodriguez, the weapons specialist on Hayes' ship, was quietly running scans on the alien vessel. What she discovered made her stomach turn. She walked over to Captain Hayes and whispered in his ear. "Captain, I've analyzed their ship's construction. Their whole armor is thinner than the metal we use for coffee cups. Their weapons are less powerful than the flashlights our Marines carry. A single shot from our smallest patrol boat would completely destroy their entire vessel." Hayes felt his jaw clench. These aliens were completely defenseless. They had no armor, no real weapons, no way to protect themselves, and something called Devourers was hunting them. "What kind of monsters?" Hayes muttered. "Hunt beings who can't even fight back." The protective instinct that had driven humans to spread across the galaxy suddenly kicked into high gear. Throughout human history, there had been one thing that could turn even the most peaceful human into a fierce warrior: seeing bullies pick on someone who couldn't defend themselves. Lieutenant Rodriguez continued her report. "Sir, based on their technology level, these aliens have probably never fought a real war. They don't even have basic defensive shields. Whatever these Devourers are, they must be pure evil to attack helpless people like this." Around the alien ship, more human vessels were arriving every minute. Admiral Tyler Bradley's voice came over the communication system from his flagship. "Captain Hayes, what's the situation? Are our new friends safe?" Hayes looked at the damaged alien ship and felt something burning in his chest. These creatures had reached out in desperation, asking for help from anyone who would listen. They were peaceful, defenseless, and scared. Something was coming to kill them, and they had nowhere to run. Admiral Hayes replied, "We have a species that has never known war being hunted by something they called devourers. They're completely helpless. Their entire ship couldn't survive one hit from our weakest weapon." There was silence on the communication channel for a moment. Then Admiral Bradley's voice came back, and it was filled with cold determination. "Then we make sure nothing ever hurts them again. Send word to the fleet. We're not just here to rescue these aliens. We're here to make sure whatever is hunting them learns what happens when you threaten innocent people while humans are watching." Vel 7 continued trying to explain the mistake, but the humans weren't listening anymore. They had made up their minds. Someone was bullying helpless aliens, and humanity was going to put a stop to it. The Zephyrians had accidentally contacted the one species in the galaxy that would cross any distance and fight any enemy to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. The space around the damaged Zephyrian ship had been quiet for several hours. The human fleet waited in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. Soldiers checked their equipment one final time. Pilots ran through their attack patterns. Everyone knew that something terrible was coming. Then the darkness of space began to tear open. It started as small rips in reality itself, like someone cutting holes in black fabric. The tears grew larger and larger until massive shapes began pushing through. What emerged from those holes was the stuff of nightmares. The Devourers didn't build ships like other species. Instead, they grew them. Each vessel looked like a giant insect, made of dark metal and pulsing flesh. Some were as long as city blocks, with hundreds of legs that moved through space like swimming motions. Others looked like massive spiders, with glowing red eyes scattered across their hulls. The largest ones resembled enormous wasps, their stingers crackling with deadly energy. Hive Queen Thela sat inside the biggest bioship, her ancient mind connected to the swarm through psychic links. She had been alive for over 1,000 years, and in that time she had watched her species consume 17 different civilizations. Entire planets stripped clean of life. Billions of creatures devoured to feed the endless hunger of her kind. She expected to find a single damaged refugee ship, maybe protected by a few small Altarian patrol vessels. An easy meal. Another quick victory. Instead, her compound eyes registered something that made even her ancient mind pause in confusion. The human battle line stretched across dozens of kilometers of space. Massive battleships floated in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that Thela had never seen before. Smaller ships darted between the larger ones like schools of deadly fish, and behind them all, she could sense something that she hadn't felt in centuries. Beings who were not afraid of her. Admiral Tyler Bradley stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Devourer swarm emerge from hyperspace. He had read the reports about what these creatures had done to other worlds. Entire civilizations wiped out, planets left as empty rocks. Billions of innocent people killed just to feed these monsters. Bradley activated his communication system and broadcast on all frequencies, his voice calm but carrying the promise of absolute violence. "Unknown hostile forces, you are now threatening beings under Terran protection. You have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from this system immediately, or face the consequences." Inside her bioship, Hive Queen Thela received a transmission, and almost laughed. These unknown aliens were threatening her. She commanded a swarm that had never known defeat. Her species had eaten civilizations that were millions of years older than whatever species this was. The Devourers had consumed 17 civilizations. They knew only hunger, not fear. They had never met an enemy they couldn't eventually overwhelm and devour. Their response was to attack. That was their last mistake. The Devourers' swarms surged forward, bioships moving with the coordinated precision of a hive mind. Energy beams shot out from their stingers. Acidic projectiles launched from their mouths. They had used these same tactics to destroy planets. The human response was immediate, and overwhelming. "All ships, weapons free," Admiral Bradley ordered, calmly. "Show them what happens when you hurt innocent people." The space between the two fleets lit up like a miniature sun. Human plasma cannons, designed to crack open asteroids for mining, turned the bioships into clouds of vapor. Nuclear torpedoes that could shatter small moons punched through the Devourer. Formations like they were made of paper. Captain Wesley Hunter, commanding the destroyer Lightning Strike, watched his weapons tear through 3 bioships in a single salvo. These things destroyed entire civilizations. He said to his crew, they must have been fighting people who had never seen real warfare. The battle, if it could even be called a battle, lasted less than an hour. The humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to make sure this threat could never hurt anyone ever again. Every bioship was tracked down and destroyed. Every piece of Devourer technology was turned into floating debris. Commander Janet Phillips, who led the fighter squadrons, later described the fight as educational. The Devourers learned that there was a difference between hunting helpless prey and facing predators, who had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. Inside the Zif ship, navigator Vel 7 pressed his face against the viewing window and watched in amazement. The creatures that had destroyed his homeworld, that had chased his people across the galaxy, were being systematically annihilated by these unknown humans. Captain Morthry Velseven whispered, "Are you seeing this?" The Zephyrian captain stood beside him, watching the human fleet methodically hunt down every last Devourer. "I think," he said slowly, "we accidentally contacted the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and somehow they're on our side." As the last bioship exploded into fragments, Admiral Bradley's voice came over the communication system again. "Threat eliminated. Medical ships, begin assisting our new friends. Construction vessels, start repairs on their ship. Welcome to the protection of humanity, friends. Nothing will ever hunt you again." The Devourers had made one fatal error. They had attacked innocent people while humans were watching. 6 months had passed since that terrible day when the Devourers came to destroy the last Zephyrian refugees. The galaxy was a very different place now, and it was all because of one species that nobody had ever heard of before. Navigator Feltuju stood on the bridge of the human starship Constitution, looking out at the stars through massive viewing windows. It still amazed him that he was here, working alongside the same species that had once terrified him with their overwhelming show of force. Now he understood that all that power was used for one simple purpose: protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity. Human officers moved efficiently between their stations, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. These weren't the same desperate emergency calls that had brought the humans to rescue his people. These were formal requests for help, sent through official channels that hadn't existed just months ago. Captain Beth Walsh sat in her command chair, reading through reports on her tablet. She was younger than most ship captains, but the humans had promoted their best and brightest to handle their new role as galactic protectors. Her uniform bore a new insignia, the symbol of the Terran Protection Accord, showing a human hand reaching out to help. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Tony Martinez, "we're receiving 3 more requests for protection agreements. The Crystalline Collective wants defensive platforms around their mining worlds. The Gentle Swimmers are asking for patrol ships in their trade routes. And the Tree Speakers want to know if we can help them relocate some colonies away from unstable stars." Walsh nodded and made notes on her tablet. "Send confirmation to all 3. Tell them we'll have survey teams there within the week." Vel 7 watched this exchange with wonder. The humans had adapted to their new role as galactic guardians with the same incredible efficiency they had shown in warfare. Within just 6 months, they had established the Terran Protection Accord and convinced 47 different alien species to sign it. The agreement was simple and powerful. Any peaceful species could request human protection. In exchange, they would share their knowledge and culture with humanity. The humans would establish defense platforms around important worlds, patrol the space lanes, and respond to any threats. It was the first time in galactic history that one species had offered to protect everyone else, asking for nothing in return except friendship. Velseven, Captain Walsh called out, "Come take a look at this." The Zephyrian navigator walked over to her command chair. On her tablet screen was a map of the galaxy, marked with hundreds of glowing dots. Each dot represented a world now under human protection. 12 major worlds have full orbital defense platforms, Walsh explained. 37 systems have regular patrol schedules, and we're getting new requests every day. Your people aren't the only ones who were being hunted by predators. It was true. The humans had discovered that the galaxy was full of peaceful species living in fear. Some were threatened by space pirates. Others faced invasion from aggressive neighbors. Many lived on worlds that were slowly dying, and they needed help relocating their populations. The humans had taken on all of these problems as their own responsibility. Lieutenant Commander Frank Chen looked up from his station. "Captain, Admiral Rodriguez is requesting an update on the new shipyard construction. Tell the Admiral that the Jupiter facility will be online next month," Walsh replied. "That will give us 50 new patrol ships. The Mars shipyards are focusing on the heavy defense platforms." Velseven was amazed by the scale of human industrial power. They had mobilized their entire civilization to build the ships and weapons needed to protect the galaxy. Factories that once made consumer goods now produced defensive satellites. Mining operations that had focused on asteroid metals were now gathering materials for ship construction. "Still think contacting us was a mistake?" Walsh asked, with a warm smile. Velseven considered the question carefully. His people were safe now, living on a beautiful new world that the humans had helped them find. The Devourers were extinct, wiped out so completely that no trace of them remained. Dozens of other species now lived without fear of destruction. The humans had taken one misplaced distress call, one desperate plea for help sent to the wrong address, and turned it into a revolution in galactic security. They had gone from unknown species to the guardians of peaceful civilization in just 6 months. Perhaps, Velseven admitted, the best mistakes are the ones that bring the right help at exactly the right time. Outside the bridge windows, a formation of human warships moved through space in perfect formation. They were on patrol, watching the shipping lanes where merchant vessels carried goods between worlds. The sight of those ships had become a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Every peaceful species now knew one simple truth: if you were in trouble, if something was threatening your people, all you had to do was call for help. Humanity would answer. They would come with overwhelming force, with absolute determination, and they would not stop until the threat was eliminated. The galaxy had learned that there was one species that would travel any distance, fight any enemy, and pay any price to protect innocent people. They had learned what happened when you called humans for help. You got more help than you ever imagined possible.